I am going to tell a story that if you've been around Hopeland for any length of time, you've heard. It's a story about my mother. And my mother and I, we got along-ish. You know, Mother's Day is one of those days that can be a really happy time and a really sad time for a lot of different reasons. And I can understand that personally. My mother passed away from breast cancer. It's a sad thing. So if that's you today and you are maybe missing someone important in your life, I understand what that's like. And I want you to know that it's so important to still take a moment and remember those important people that helped us get to where we are in our lives. And I know that some people are trying to get to a place maybe where they want to become a mother, and maybe that's not worked out yet so far. Know that there's maybe still hope for that God can move in your life in a way that you didn't expect. And today I think that it's important that we pause and remember how we got here, because somebody was a part of that. And it's important to remember and honor that person. And so this morning I'm going to tell a story that may not be particularly becoming of my mother, but I think is definitely worth telling because I remember it so vividly. And I know that I definitely earned this particular event that unfolded in our house. So as a teenager, I'm like many teenagers in that I eventually came to a place where I realized I knew way more than my parents knew. And I was not shy in communicating that. And so I remember that there was a day, and we lived in a two-story house in Huber Heights, and it was one of those Huber homes, those cookie-cutter houses, like 1,000 different ones, but there were like only 7 different models. And so we were living in one of those Huber homes over there. I can kind of picture where we're at. And then we had this kitchen, this longer kitchen where we had all the cabinets on one side, and there was a table away from the cabinets, but it was kind of one big open area. And I was sitting at the table, and then she was over in the kitchen. And we got into an argument. Now, I can't remember the particulars of this argument except for the part where I was right, and I was going to let her know how right I was. And so I remember that this is where I'm going to tell you just about how far moms will go to make sure their kids understand who's in charge. Because this what next thing that happened, I did not expect. So I am arguing with my mother, who had just gotten back buying all the groceries to make sure we had things to eat. She's carrying all the groceries in. She's got all, how you get like 50,000 groceries in one hand at one time. She's bringing all these groceries in, and she's got them all set up there, and she's getting them out. Here we are getting into it now. So me and my mom, we're getting into an argument, and it's getting kind of heated. And so now I'm in the kitchen, away from where the table is. I've gotten into the kitchen, and my mom, and we're kind of close to each other's face because that's how we roll in the Skank family, which is my mom's side of the family. If you go to Skank family reunion, it gets loud. It's just the way it is. So we are very loud, and we're in each other's face, and things are getting serious. And my mom finally gets to the point where she is so fed up, she doesn't know what else to do with me. And she grabs the milk she just bought from the store, and she cracks the seal, and she dumps it on my head. And she leaves it dumping on my head, which I don't know why I just stood there. But I stood there and allowed the entire gallon to empty out onto my head until it was completely empty. And then she slammed the empty gallon down, and I was completely soaked in milk. And so at this point, I am completely shocked, because you don't expect something like that to happen to you. She starts to walk away, and I say, "Who's going to clean this?" And I remember my mom grabbed some silverware, and I ducked, and she threw the silverware at me, and then I cleaned it up. That was probably the right decision at that point. So I don't know if you have a story like that with your mom. I know that sometimes it wasn't like my mom's abusive or anything like that. That's not the case at all. Believe me, I'm sure I deserved it. But sometimes things can get crazy in a house, and sometimes mom's got to do what mom's got to do. And that's what happened on that day. But I think that as we are looking at Mother's Day today, that it's important to remember, regardless of how good or not our relationship is with our mother, or maybe if our mother's here or not, it's crucial that we pause and remember that we would not be here if it were not for mothers. They are a crucial part of our arrival. And as we think about that, there is a tie between mothers and children that I think is special and God ordained. He built that into them, where once we came here in the world, they just knew that we were their responsibility. And they just knew that they were the ones that were going to usher and guide us along. I remember a lot more good stories with my mom. You know, one of the things that my mom did that I may have mentioned this in the past, but as an adult, it's amazing to me that as we were growing up, she would let me play my guitar in the car when we would go places. You know, and that's crazy because as an adult, I don't think I would let my kids do that. You know, I'm kind of like, hey, whoa, no, that's just ridiculous. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be crazy around here. We're not going to just bring a loud item into the vehicle and just go crazy. As an adult, like, I just can't do it. Even looking back, knowing what my mom did for me, I don't know that I could do that. And there's a certain level of respect. And the thing that I love about that is because I became eventually a worship leader on staff at a church. And as a worship leader on staff at a church, I grew up in that place and environment, and then eventually came to plant a church and become a pastor. And so she was an investor in that regard by tolerating me as a crazy person. And I think that that's part of what mothers do. Is part of they tolerate us when nobody else will tolerate us. They're there to help kind of carry and nudge us along. And when we do things that are intolerable, they're there to let us know, but to also be there still after we do all those things. And so as a young person, I know there are plenty of times where I was way outside the lines, but my mom was there to care and pull me back in over and over and over, helping me become the person that I was supposed to be growing into it. And I know that all along the way, my mom, she used to come and attend Hopeland here on a regular basis, being a part of our church and encouraging. And she would come and pray for our church and pray for the leadership. And it's sad she never got to be a part of coming here to Miller Lane to see what was happening here after all those years of investment and being able to see what's happening here. But I know she sees from God's perspective because she's with God, because she loved the Lord. But I think that what's important about this is knowing that our mothers go through a great deal for us to become the people that we are. And they deal with so much that we don't remember all the things that we did to them along the way. And I think that's so important for us to remember the difficulties that they went through. More than just the beginning, but all the way through. And that they are due from us a response. And that God has called us to that response. And ultimately, I think that when we go back all the way to the beginning, we can see that God from the very start saw that when Adam was created, it wasn't quite enough to really make it work. Adam was created, and then right out of the gate in the beginning of the story, the Lord said it is not good for the man to be alone. That's true. We get ourselves into all kinds of trouble on our own. We don't know what's going on. And so God saw that. He's like, this guy is going to be in big trouble. We better do something about this. So he knew that there was a lack, that there was something missing. A part was missing just when it was Adam. And then he knew that there was going to be an impartation from God's character, not just into Adam, which I believe men carry a part of God's character, but I think women carry a part of God's character that is not shared, meaning God gave it to them and not to men. And it's part of some of the misunderstandings that can happen, where we can't see all the way across all the time to see how they see it, because they see from a vantage point given to them by their Creator on purpose so that we can become a unit together and see the world fully. So God saw it's not good for the man to be alone. He put with Adam Eve, the mother of all the living. That was her name, Eve. And so Eve becomes the first mother. The mother of humanity, in a sense. And Adam and Eve became the first whole unit together. Because it was not good for Adam to go at it on his own. And so as I was looking for some interesting facts about motherhood this week, I found some things from Pew Research and the Educational Statistics Center, National Center of Educational Statistics, if I can get that out. So here's some interesting things to know about moms. Mothers spend an average of 14 hours a week conducting essential household operations. That's doing the laundry, it's doing the dishes, It's all kinds of stuff like that, just some basic stuff. That's not the mothering stuff. That's just like your basic operations kind of things. Mothers spend about 6 hours a week driving their kids to activities and appointments when your kids are between the age of 6 and 18 years old. 6 hours a week. Mothers spend 3 hours a week volunteering at their children's school on average. Mothers spend 5 hours a week helping their kids with homework. Mothers spend 7 hours a week entertaining and reading and things like that with their kids and getting on the ground and doing a puzzle or something else and just being engaged with them and setting aside whatever important task they have, because you know how it is when you're a mother. There's something important to do and all these things on the list, and you got dinner and you got to order, maybe the groceries. Maybe you do the click list thing. You order the groceries and they deliver it, and it takes a while to get that all thought through, and you've got all these tasks on your list, and you've got stuff coming up this week. You got to be thinking about the holidays, and we're got to bring a dish over and got to be thinking through what to make. And yet you still take your time and focus in on the little one. Make sure that they get your time. This is happening on average 7 hours a week. In fact, there was a study conducted of 2,000 mothers. 2,000 mothers. And it was specifically stay-at-home moms, because I think the dynamics are a little bit different if you're working. And I don't know what the particulars are, because this was stay-at-home specific. The study of 2,000 stay-at-home mothers showed that mothers spend approximately 97 hours per week actively mothering. 97 hours. That's all the things that they do. When you add it all up, it is a serious job. I don't work 97 hours a week. I work a lot of hours. I work probably an average of 75, 80 hours, which is a lot. Let me tell you, when you work 80 hours, when you start getting above 80 hours, it's like, I'm starting to break. Because I track my hours on my calendar and keep track of when I do things for Hopeland and when I do things on the side to make a little bit extra money and when I have appointments and things like that. And you add it all up, you start getting over the 80 mark. I've learned that's where you start to just kind of have a breakdown for your time. This is what mothers are doing every week, and they just go for it. They just go on. It's no wonder sometimes mothers are like, I'm going to kill all of you. That's how I would be if I was working 97 hours a week. Because they're serious. They're serious about their job that's given to them by God. The thing that they did for us, the things that some of you are doing for your children and families. This is an amazing and powerful thing. And I'm telling you, what God asks us to do is that we should pay them back with one particular word. And that word is honor. Mothers are due our honor. What is honor? Well, I looked up honor in the dictionary. Honor is high respect, great esteem. I was thinking about honor. I was thinking about high respect, great esteem. And I was trying to picture in my mind, what is that like maybe in a different situation in my life? Where is a situation where I have high respect, great esteem, so I can kind of bring that into focus for what we ought to be paying for, forward to our mothers. And I was thinking about, as a pastor, I've made some relationships with some other pastors in the area, and I might have a relationship with somebody like Stan Tharp at Christian Life Center, which I don't have a close relationship. He knows who I am, but that's about it. But I know another gentleman that is like that at a church farther away called Rivers Crossing. About 3,000 people. They've been very intentional in investing in this church. And so we have a relationship, and I have high respect and great esteem for Paul Taylor, whom would know me if I walked into his church of 3,000 people. He would see me across the room and say, the Allens. And he knows us. And so if I got a call from Paul Taylor on my phone, whatever it was I was doing, wherever it was I was doing it, I would say, one moment, I have an important call. And I would step aside. I don't care what it is I was doing. I would step out of what I was doing and say, Paul, I saw you called. What is it you need? That is high respect, great esteem. That is where we take that person and we put that person above all other priorities that we have going on. When they encounter or engage us, when they reach out to us, they are at the top of the list of importance. They matter, and we want to pay honor to those people. That's what it's like. I don't know what that person is in your life that maybe you have that relationship with, where if they called you, you would stop everything and say, I'll take that call. That call is a call I will take. I want you to take that moment, that feeling, that experience that you have for that person and think, how can I take that and apply it to the mother in my life? And maybe for you, your mother's not in your life, but there are mothers in your life. So maybe my mother is no longer in my life, but I do have mother figures in my life that are important and powerful influences. They were important in helping guide me as a young person, and some of those mother influences are important in guiding me now. And it's important for me to understand that they are due my honor, that they are highly respected by me with great esteem. That's what we should be doing. For most of us, there's probably someone in your life that has some similar role, even if your mother's not here today. Who are the people in your life to whom you can pay honor? Who have been playing that role perhaps in the place of someone that might have been taken away a long time ago or recently? This is part of what God is calling us to and asking us to do. And it comes really from the earliest days of Christianity before Christianity was called Christianity. Back when it was just the Jews, just the Hebrews even. They come out of Egypt, and as they come out of Egypt, God lays down some basic plans for the world. And he says, this is how you're going to live. You're going to be different than the rest of the world. The rest of the world lives for themselves, but I'm calling you to live a different way. You're going to do this, and if you do this, I will bless you. I will not just bless you, Israel. They weren't yet Israel. They were going to be Israel, but they were just the Hebrew people, which is the offspring of a promise to one man named Abraham earlier on, whom God said, I'm going to bless you and your children, your posterity. They're going to grow into a great nation. I'm going to bless them, and they're going to become a nation. And I'm setting you apart for me. And so finally, God fulfills his promise to Abraham through the Hebrew people who are enslaved in Egypt, which we've probably heard the story. It's a famous story where Moses goes into Egypt and says, let my people go. And then God does all these plagues to kind of show Egypt and the Pharaoh who is boss. And eventually Pharaoh capitulates, forced to capitulate, really, because he wouldn't give into it until his firstborn was killed. And so they finally make their way into the desert to begin the years of wandering. And right out of the gate, Moses goes up onto this mountain, and God delivers to him all of these rules. And he says, if you follow these rules, you're going to be different than the other nations. You're going to value life. You're going to value the institutions that I have established since the beginning. You're going to value the relationship you have with God. You're going to value the relationships you have with each other. And this is going to set you apart, and you're going to become a great nation, not only by my blessing, but just by doing these things. It will help you get there all on its own from a practical place. And Moses comes off the mountain, and he's got these tablets. And God's presence was so powerful that Moses was glowing. And they said, dude, that's weird. Can you put a veil on your head? That was their response to Moses. And he gives them all these laws. And among these laws, which there's about 600 laws, there were top 10 laws that got handed down. What are they called? 10 Commandments, the top 10. And among the top 10, one of them is this: honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Honor. And the cool thing is there's this promise tied to it. And this is a promise we ought to hold on to and say, Lord, I honor my parents. You promised to give us long life in the land. So as you live your life, you can know if you honor your father and mother, this is a promise you can claim to the Lord. And so this is the thing and commission that God has called children to their parents. So we're going to look at 4 ways we can honor our mothers today. And the first one is we should honor our mother with respect. Now, the first thing, before I want to get into this, is understanding the difference between honor, respect, and obedience. Because there's a difference. Because in the beginning, Scripture does say, children, obey your parents. But there's a time when you're no longer a child. And we need to understand that there's a line that gets drawn from what God is asking of us. So, I want to just state this directly. Honor does not necessarily mean to obey. They may give you good advice, and it may be worth thinking about, is this something I have to do? Sometimes your parents have already been through it. Sometimes your parents are telling you something you really should do, and if you did do, you might end up way better off than if you didn't do it. But that's not what Scripture asks of us once we have left, because there is a time where Adam is joined to Eve, right? And then God makes this declaration that eventually a husband and wife will come together, and then they will leave their parents. That's part of the natural flow, and they create a new household, a new family, and their obedience goes to God at that point. And now we're paying our parents honor. And our parents might give us advice, but obedience and honor are not equivalents. Because some parents aren't in a place to really tell you what to do with wisdom. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't honor them. Sometimes our parents aren't in a place where they're even respectful to us. But God says you should still honor them. Maybe not obey them. Maybe they're not as far along in their spiritual walk as you are. And they don't have the best ideas about how to go forward. Which is probably why Scripture makes this clarification. But it doesn't mean they are not due our honor. Regardless of what they do or say or how they are or act towards us, they are still due honor. In fact, the worse that your parents are to you, the more credit you get for paying them honor. God sees the way they treat you. So if from some of you, you're like, if you knew my parents, you would know they don't deserve any honor from me. Let me tell you, God knows that. He's not unaware. And that will be tabulated when he comes to the end and says, now look at this. Look at the way you treated them. How well you treated them despite what they did to you. Now that's something we noticed. So keep in mind that the call to honor is not necessarily related to how well or not well they've treated you. So you may not have to obey them, and they may not be as far along as you. I understand all that, but you still honor them. So if your parents, if your mother, today specifically, is talking to you, calling you, is wanting to share something with you, and you don't agree with it, or you think it's the wisest way forward, or they've said it 1,000 times, and you don't want to hear it anymore, then maybe one of the ways that you can show them the respect is just by listening. Just by listening to what they have to say. Just the active paying attention and processing the words they're saying. Does it mean you have to do what they're telling you to do? Not necessarily. But it does show honor to truly, intentionally open our ear to hear them. That's a way of respect. To pause and not respond right away. Sometimes we want to get right to, no, I don't think so, blah, blah, blah. Here's the reasons why I don't agree with that. And we don't have to say that. There's no need for us to always go to that place. Sometimes it's wise for us to just pause and open our ear. And even if we don't agree, you can just say, thanks, Mom. I'll think about it. And that leaves them feeling better than the yelling match, doesn't it? So that's a way, or just being polite is just a way to pay respect. Rather than going to that place we always go where it devolves into a huge yelling match, which believe me, I know. Me and my mom, we got into it. My wife would always tell me when we go to family gatherings, you better be nice to your mom. I'm watching you. She's over here laughing. She's like, it's true. I'm going to reel this guy in. He has some problems. Just be polite. It's not necessary to always go to that place. Maybe avoid being harsh. Just avoid harsh words. Maybe if you're going to have a candid conversation or a discussion, you can do so without being harsh in the process. So we should listen, open our ear, pay attention to the words they're saying. Pause, be patient. Don't You don't have to always respond so quickly. We could be polite in the way that we reply and avoid using harsh words towards them. I think another one that we could do is, another way that we can respect our mothers is by taking a part of our time towards them. There's this verse in Ephesians, it's not about mothers, but I think it's just a good thing you can apply to almost everything in life. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And I think we know what the Lord's will is, that we honor our mother. And in this particular scripture, we're seeing that we are looking at the thing about time, making the most of every opportunity. You may not always have an opportunity to be with your mother. You may not always have another Mother's Day. We need to be thinking about those things. There may not be another opportunity down the road to go down there and help her out with what she needs help with. And so we should honor our mother with our time. So we honor her with our respect. We honor her with our time. We give them time. Time is a thing. It's something that we sell to other people. Isn't it true? This is a valuable asset. We go to work, we clock in, we keep track of every minute. We make sure to use the bathroom before the end of our day so that our boss pays for it. Give them that valuable asset. Time. Visit them. Mothers love that. They love that, especially when we've gone on our way and we're doing our own thing, our own families. What used to be has begun to become less and less. Visiting a mother can be a powerful thing. We should give them our time and invest in them. Another one, this is how we know what love is. Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Again, this is not specifically about mothers, but I think it's just the general sense about Christianity. It can be applied to a million ways. And so as we think about how we honor our mothers, we should think about honoring them with sacrifice. After all, who sacrificed the most for us besides Christ? I think for many people, and it's not always true, and I know that there's bad situations and stories and circumstances. I do understand that. But I think for many people, for me, and for many people, that mothers in general, they give up their time. There we go. They give up their time. They give up all kinds of things. They put their dreams on hold, don't they? How many mothers have set aside a career or some kind of path that they had in mind for themselves in order to invest and create and set aside the time for a family? I've known people who are very career driven and then decided they were going to have a family, and then all of a sudden all those things start to just start getting put aside. Over here, I don't have time for this anymore. This family thing's a big deal. I've seen mothers do that on time after time after time. I've seen that happen to mothers who are career-driven people, but they put it aside for their families, for their children, to make sure that they got what they need, to make sure that their children can grow up to teenagers and yell at their face. That's how we pay them back so often. They make financial sacrifices. Kids, except for the tax deduction, are expensive. They cause emotional turmoil. Kids drive us crazy. They start out cuddly and cute. They don't always end that way, do they? There's physical labor involved, all the way from the beginning for mothers. But man, all the work that has to be done to continuously keep things going, and all the things that kids get into and mess up, and they make a mess of themselves and make a mess of the environment, and they don't always know what they're doing, and sometimes they do know exactly what they're doing, and then it's still up to moms to figure out what to do. I think that it's so important for us to understand the sacrifice that they have made. And having nothing to do with that, Jesus said, even if they didn't do that, Know that I did it for you, and because I did it for you, I'm asking you to do it for others. And he's especially saying, pay honor towards your parents, towards your mothers. That we know from all those commands that Moses carried down from the mountain. So we have these different commissions to pay special attention and honor to our mothers. And we know that Jesus is asking us to sacrifice and lay our own lives down ourselves. He's asking us to sacrifice for their sake. Moms know what it means to sacrifice, and we should return that favor because Jesus asked us to do it. And if your mom wasn't like that and you didn't have that story and it wasn't your situation, you should still do it because Jesus asked you to do it. And then again, you get even extra credit for that from God's perspective. So, of course, like the last time, we make time, but not only do we make time to go do annoying things for them. Sometimes that means going over there and figuring out their Wi-Fi or things like that. That's the kind of thing I get asked to do. It's actually my pleasure to do that. Do I love doing Wi-Fi? No. Do I love honoring my mom? Do I love honoring the mother figures in my life? That I do like. And I think if I can take this annoying task off their hand, that's my pleasure. Look for opportunities to help them, to carry the wood from the shed over to the house, or to help them clean out something that's just been bugging them for the last 5 years because it's just been busy and so forth. I think that what's important is that not only do we set aside time to just be with them, but we set aside time to actually engage in their problems and difficulties. Once we're old enough to do that, that should be something that is important to us. We should make them a priority, really. Give them priority and make them something that matters. And this is what matters, is going and being a part of their life and engaging and taking some of the stress and turmoil off of their plate and putting it on to our plate. Sometimes that means getting in the car and driving 25 minutes to go do something. You know, last night my parents asked me, because they were out of town, if I can go to their house and take the trash cans up the hill because they weren't there to do that, to take a couple of packages in. And I thought, yes, it would be my pleasure to do that. It'd be my pleasure to make your search for the person doing that while you're out of town stop right here. I don't want you to have to look anymore. Don't worry, count me in. We've got this. My wife had to remind me, though, later. She's like, you need to go do that. You said you'd do it. But it's so crucial as we enter the process of showing honor that we make this something that we do because we love them. Because we love them, because God asks us to do that. And the more that we do that, and more that we make that who we are and part of who we are, the more that God is going to take note of that, and he makes the promise, and the promise is you will live long in the land. Not that you should do it just for the sake of that promise, but as you live up to God's call on your life, he is willing to respond on the promise. You do it because he asked you to, and at the end of your life, something happens. You say, Lord, didn't you say? And he says, I did say. And who knows what kind of miraculous work he may do. And so we should be constantly looking for ways to honor our parents. Sometimes we don't just honor them when they ask us. Maybe part of honoring is looking for a moment to honor. Maybe it's going out of our way to find something annoying that we can help them with. It's not always just us responding to the call that they give us, but maybe sometimes it's us calling to say, how can I help you? How can I step into what you need this week? That's part of honor. Honor is saying you are more important than my priorities. Honor is saying you are higher in my mind than some other things going on in my life. I am willing to stop what I'm doing and take your call because of who you are. The person you are to me matters. You are my mother. God put you in my life. You matter. And I want to do what is right by you according to what God has called me to do. That's what it means to honor. And so wherever you're at in your life, what's going on in your life, where it's happening with your parents, with your mother, whether she's part of your life or not, maybe somebody other than your natural mother has been in a mothering role in your life. Maybe they have the role but haven't been playing out the role in the way that possibly they should have been playing it out. Like I said, the more that they haven't been doing their part, the more opportunity you have to do your part. The more opportunity you have to get credit for even going above and beyond. Look for the opportunity to do that. And so today, as you go out of this place, be thinking, how can I go outside of what is even required, what they're even asking, to step into what God is asking of me, to sacrifice my time, to make them a priority, to step into their life and take some of their stresses off of them and on to me, and to show them respect with my words and with my ears, my listening in to what they have to say, and holding back on all of my opinions that I have. Let's bow our heads in this place. Lord God, we thank you for all the mothers, the transforming people in so many of our lives, the ones who snap us back to reality, the ones that push back on us when we were kids and we were completely out of line, for their discipline, for their loving correction in our lives that shaped the people we are now. Father, I pray for the mothers now as we're adults, Lord, that we would not forget the role that they had, that we would show them respect and honor, Lord, as you have called us to. That we would open our ears to them, and that we would be filled with an upright attitude towards them. That we would be intentional, prioritizing them over other things that we've got going on that we can sometimes think are so important, but in reality, you have called us otherwise. I pray that you would help us to slow down and to pay attention to these people that sometimes are not with us as long as we think. And that we would pay them the honor which they are due, that you have demanded that we pay them. Because you're responsible for us being here. You're the one who really gave the whole world life. And so you have asked this of us, and you have the right to do so. So I pray that we would take that commission and live it out. Help us to be honorable as it relates to this relationship, this special relationship that you have established in each of our lives. Father, for each person who has lost a mother, I pray, Lord, for comforting this week. As many people are remembering their mothers, and maybe there's a huge hole or an absence, a powerful relationship that was there. Father, I pray for comfort. I pray for your blessing on the day, that they would know that you love them and have not forgotten them, and that you would be with them each hour. I pray for a blessing on the day, that there would be fun and celebration and meals and enjoyment of celebration of this great and wonderful role that you have placed in the lives of everyone in the room. We thank you so much for your goodness to us all. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope that you have a wonderful Mother's Day. If you need any prayer, we'd love to pray with you and call the prayer teams forward. The rest of you have an awesome day. We'll see you next week for the first week of our worship series, Sing.